Hi everyone, and welcome back to another video. This one is a bit of a throwback today to way back when I first started my channel. So those of you who've been around a while, you may remember the guy that we're going to be speaking about today. Back when I first started, I made a few videos about this horrific blog called Biblical Gender Roles, and the guy who makes it, he's anonymous, so we just call him Biblical Gender Roles himself. The government's definition of sexual abuse, as with physical abuse, nullifies a husband's God-given sexual rights to his wife's body in marriage. It also nullifies his right to discipline her for sexual refusal. The Bible says that sex is both a right and responsibility in marriage. And then he references this earlier article he wrote in which he spoke about how women owe their husbands sex and women shouldn't be able to refuse, and he basically says that husbands have the right to discipline their wives for refusing to have sex. And whether he realizes it or not, and I think he does, he is condoning rape here. He's this anonymous 40-something-year-old man who uses the Bible to push this incredibly dangerous and ultimately completely misogynistic agenda. And he advocates for some really horrible stuff. So we're talking marital rape and domestic violence, amongst other things. And he's just an all-around dangerous man, preaching this stuff to other people, teaching them how to be dangerous men and women to just suck it up and deal with dangerous men. It's horrible. So, content warning, we're going to be speaking about some horrible stuff in today's video. Be prepared. If you need to skip this video, absolutely fine. Not going to hold it against anyone at all. But this stuff needs talking about. I hadn't kept up with him for a while, so I decided to check in on his blog again, and it turns out that he also has this second blog, this second website called Biblical Sexology, which is all about him, again, as always, cherry-picking parts of the Bible so that he can push these really harmful messages onto people as being truth and teachings and whatever. And as always, it's harmful, it's dangerous, and it's incredibly detrimental to women in particular. The only difference is this time it's all to do with sex, just instead of 50% of it. One of his most recent posts is titled 10 Rules of Sex for Wives, and before we even read the content of this article, I kind of want to talk about why this title alone is so dangerous and alarming. Because, regardless of what your religion is or isn't, using someone else as standards, as strict rules when it comes to something like sex can be incredibly dangerous because it undermines your personal bodily autonomy, and that's never okay. It also completely undermines your right to give consent, and again, that's incredibly dangerous. The only person who can and should be setting rules about what happens to your body is you. Even if you are religious, never ever feel like you have to do something with your body that you don't want just because someone tells you that the Bible says blah blah blah. Never feel like you have to do something you're not comfortable with just because someone else says it's in your religion's rules. You never have to do anything you're not comfortable with. Only you know what is right and what is wrong for your body, and only you can and should be setting those rules. The other danger is not only that people aren't going to realize that they have their own right to choose and consent, but that, especially with young people reading articles like this, where they say these are the rules that women have to follow, you'll have people who come along and think, well, these are the rules that women are going to follow then, and women are going to do these things, and women must do those things, and they're just going to expect that of them, and they'll never question them, and that leads to a huge risk of never understanding the importance of discussing your preferences and your needs and your boundaries with your sexual partner. And again, that's an incredibly dangerous thing to be teaching. Of course, boundaries and limits and rules, if you want to call them that, are absolutely key in any relationship, whether you're intimate with a person or not. But especially when you are intimate with them, whether it's for one night or 50 years, these rules should be discussed and decided between you and not imposed by only one party or imposed by an external, set of rules or ideology or whatever. You as an individual have every right to turn around and say something like, I don't want to be touched here, I would like you to do X to me, I don't want you to ever try Y, that's outside my comfort zone. You have every right to say stuff like that, but it's never okay for someone to come in and say, you have to let me do X, Y, and Z to you because I want to. That's not okay. You can ask your partner, is it okay if we try this? Or they can ask you, is it okay if we try this? But it's never okay for them to say, we have to do this. I want to do this, so you have to let me. That's not okay.
it's not okay to be pushed past your limits, and it's not okay to push someone else past their limits either. Now, just before we start and jump into looking at the actual article and reading it itself, I just want to do a little bit of cheeky self-promotion, because I'm not really good at this stuff and I always forget to do it, but please indulge me for the next 2 minutes, because in exciting news, I have some more photography prints available on my website if you'd like to get any of them. I love them and I'm so proud of them, and this is like years worth of my favourite photography work all kind of coming together in one little place where you can go and buy prints and have a little piece of me and my art in your home if you would like. I'm quite proud and I love it, and it would be lovely if you want to support my channel in any way, you can buy a print and get a little piece of art in return if it's something you're interested in. It's all good. There might be something there that you like. If not, don't worry about it, there's no pressure. But the other kind of exciting thing is I'm adding to my store at the minute something a little bit special, and they are kind of, I don't really know how to describe them, they're like one of a kind of pieces of, I guess you could call them art, but they're like original poems by me, hand typed on a typewriter, complete with like, I've signed them all, or I'm going to be signing them all individually, and they'll all have like a little individual or unique sort of doodles or little paintings or something on them, just something a little bit special. Some of them are just poems that I've written quite seriously kind of for myself, and some of them are the silly ones that me and Kyra made together, so there's a big variety on there depending on what you want and what you're into. But each one, like I say, is completely handmade and all done by me, and they do take a bit of time, but they're so much fun to make, and each one is going to be completely unique, and so you get something kind of special and one of a kind, and I'm quite proud of them. So if you want to check them out, they're also over on my website, and I'll be sending them all out individually myself by hand, and you'll all get a little personalized note from me and everything if you buy one. So that's just something that I'm doing and that I'm quite, again, kind of proud of, and I'm enjoying making and stuff. So if you're interested, that's, you can go check them out. If you don't like them, that's also fine too. I know they won't be for everyone, but a couple of people expressed a bit of interest, so I thought I would, see what people think. Anyway, I'm rambling. If you want to check that out, my website is racheloates.uk/shop. That's RACHELOATES.uk/shop, and you can find stuff there. Yeah, okay, thank you for that. Let's get back to the article. So, this article, as always, it's worth pointing out a huge glaring flaw in this article here, where our author is assuming that all couples are male-female. They don't consider same-sex couples, they don't consider non-binary people, they don't consider trans people, they don't consider polyamorous relationships, and so on. There's a lot of things they miss out, even I probably haven't covered everything there, but the point is they're very heteronormative, very one man, one woman, which is a real problem when you're talking about kind of sex education in general, because we need to be as inclusive as possible in our sex education, and this guy just isn't. And if you are interested in some really nice inclusive books on sex ed, I've got a few recommendations coming up at the end of this video, so keep watching for that. So background to this post is that a woman named Monica has written into Biblical Gender Roles to tell him, and I quote, about 10 rules for sex that her husband gave her at the beginning of their marriage. Right, so these rules are very good applications of what the Bible says about submission and sex in marriage. I asked how many years Monica and her husband have been married in a follow-up email, and she responded that they have been married for 13 years. So ladies, listen up. These rules are made for both a holy and happy marriage for Monica and her husband, and they will for you as well if you follow them. Now, as always, I'm not going to shame the individuals in this. I'm not going to shame Monica and her husband. If they're just out here living their lives in this way and they're happy and it works for them, then more power to them. Who am I to come along and say, no, don't do that? If it works for them, that's absolutely fine. However, when they start sharing these things as rules for other people to follow and saying, you need to do this too, this is the only way to do things, they're literally encouraging dangerous behaviour that could get people hurt or killed or assaulted, and that needs to be spoken out against and corrected. I'm never going to shame an individual if it works for them, but I will shame people for pushing potentially harmful rules on the masses. Does that make sense? So Monica wrote, I got married when I was only 19 and had a lot to learn, which I think tells us a hell of a lot. It would have been really helpful to have already thought about all the things you teach. I was lucky because my husband gave me strict rules to follow, which helped me a lot. They are basically what I've written down here. Following his rules has led to a healthy sexual relationship and marriage. I mean, I'm gonna guess after reading through all these rules that maybe me and Monica have different definitions of what a healthy sexual relationship is, but... So rule 1, obedience means complete obedience, no exceptions. If you can pick and choose when to obey, you aren't actually being obedient. Sex is an important part of marriage, and being totally sexually obedient to your husband is part of your vows. Respect your husband's authority over you in every aspect of your life, as God intended. So you can see we're off to a strong start. You're not a dog. You don't need to be obedient. And this goes for everyone. Sex is about everyone involved and not about just giving up control of your body to someone else. It's about the both of you, or the many of you if that's what you're into, but it's about all parties sharing this experience together. It's not about one person giving up something to another, which, side note, is also why I hate the idea of like giving up your virginity or losing your virginity. You're not. I've spoken about that in a whole other video, this social construct of virginity and how it annoys me. Anyway, sex should never, ever, ever be about giving up control of your body. And even when you have couples who are into things like, submission and dominance and that kind of thing, it's never actually about giving up control. There's still a mutual underlying respect there. There's still a mutual understanding. There's still no actual loss of control, which is why people feel they can kind of give up a little bit because it makes them feel safe. It's like a whole thing. The point is, no one's ever giving anything up against their will in those relationships. The point is that, like, telling someone to obey someone else, regardless of whether they're comfortable with it or not, is not okay, and it's dangerous. I know I made that like dog joke, right? But in all seriousness, the reason we train dogs to be obedient is primarily for their own safety, because they're not always aware of all the dangers in the world that we can see and that we're aware of and that we know about. So what we know is dangerous for dogs, dogs don't always know is dangerous for them. So training a dog to be obedient so they listen to you means that you can protect them and tell them where to go and what to do and how to behave and to keep them safe. Keep them away from dangerous food, for example. That's why you train a dog to be obedient. Telling a wife to be obedient during sex, especially against her will, there's no good reason to do that. There's no, it's for her own benefit. It's not. It's just about control and ego and selfishness, and that's not okay. Whether you're married or not, you still get to retain control over your body. You still get to be in charge and decide what you do and don't want to do. Marriage is not a promise of sex whenever your partner wants it. Nothing is a promise of that at all. You still need to re-establish consent every single time. And this is something that biblical gender roles doesn't seem to understand. It's something that people like the transformed wife don't seem to understand. And it's an incredibly harmful narrative to push. Rule 2 is also gross. Your main pleasure from sex comes from you pleasing your husband. Sometimes sex will be physically pleasurable for you, and sometimes it won't be physically pleasurable for you. But either way, if you satisfy your husband, then you will be fulfilled knowing that you have pleased your man. I mean, this was clearly written and imposed by someone who has never sexually pleased a woman in their life. Clearly. It's so incredibly selfish and disgusting. I mean, yes, of course, it's always nice to know that your partner's enjoying themselves, and that definitely makes it better. But like, sex should be a mutual thing. It should be something you're experiencing together and caring about each other's experience together. But like, I'm trying to make sure I word this in the right way because it's difficult. You can be considerate of your partner's needs and wants and pleasure whilst also prioritizing your own. Like, never let anyone tell you that your physical pleasure doesn't matter and that your physical comfort doesn't matter, because it absolutely 100% does. And you should be comfortable enough with your partner to be able to say things like, I like this, I don't like this, please do this. And you're absolutely okay to ask for those things. If you're not enjoying something, ask to change it. If you are enjoying it, but not as much as you could be, ask to change it. You're well within your rights. And I actually just really recommend whoever you are, and again, whether you've been with your partner for your entire life or for just one night, it doesn't really matter. I just really recommend, whoever you are, you just spend some time kind of learning about your body and understanding your own body and understanding what you like and what you don't like and what your boundaries are. And this also goes for asexual people as well, because you need to understand your own body to be able to communicate what you want, or maybe in most cases don't want, to other people. There's a great little book that I recommend actually for absolutely everyone to read, but kind of especially for people who are assigned female at birth, but absolutely everyone should read this book, and it's simply called Sex Ed, A Guide for Adults by Ruby Rare, and it's great. It's incredibly inclusive. It covers a lot of things that your regular sex ed in school maybe didn't, and it can help fill in any gaps you have there in your understanding, and it'll help you understand a little bit more about your own body, about your partner's bodies, help you understand where your main pleasure, as this person likes to put it, really comes from. They'll help you understand things, it'll help you understand things about like consent, and it helps kind of break down barriers around kind of like virginity, but also like slut shaming on the other hand, and that's hard for me to say with all the S's. But yeah, it covers like a hell of a lot of things, and different people with different sex drives and different people are into different things, and it's a great little guide for everyone, basically. But anyway, I'm kind of like rambling again now. I just want to kind of end this point here by, because I've said this before, I've made a whole video on this, but I'm just going to say it over and over and over again because it's so important. Sex should never, ever, ever be physically unpleasant. If you aren't enjoying something, if you don't feel comfortable, if you're not happy, if you're hurting in any way, you can and should ask to stop or change things up or take a break. Communicate with your partner. You should never just have to lay back and take it. Never, ever, ever feel bad about pointing out that something during sex is making you not completely comfortable. Pain and discomfort for anyone, but especially women, isn't normal, even though that's what some people have been led to believe. Rule 3 is also ridiculous. Your husband carries great responsibility as the head of your household. It is very stressful to be your family's leader, provider, and protector, and sex is an important way to relieve that stress. Sometimes your husband is going to demand sex at an inconvenient time or when you're tired. Remember that he probably needs a physical release to help him get through a hard day. So manipulative. I hate this one. I'm just going to guess, right? This point right here is why so many men, like the guy from Biblical Gender Roles, seem to push so hard for this outrated man should be breadwinner type narrative, right? It's not because they actually think men are better at whatever these things are than women. It's because they want to do those things to use it as an excuse to get whatever they want, like sex. They want to be like, oh, well, I'm out working all day, and therefore you should do the cooking and the cleaning and be my little sex doll. That's why I think a lot of these men push these gender roles. Oh god, they want little housemaids and sex toys. They don't want a partnership with natural human being. It's disgusting. Actually, it is disgusting, and you don't need to put up with it. That's the important thing to take away from this. You do not need to put up with it. You do not need to be those things at all. You're far better off alone and respected than with a man who treats you like an object, and with a person who treats you like an object. Seriously, I'll keep saying this. Never, ever, ever have sex when you don't want to. I don't care who your partner is or what they've done, or even if it's something lovely, you never ever owe someone your body. It's like these people who think that if they pay on a date, and if they insist on paying on a date, they're gonna get something from you. Like, it's not how it works. Sex isn't transactional. It isn't, I'll earn some money and you cook me dinner. It's not, I'll go to work this morning and you put my penis in your mouth tonight. Like, it's not how it works. And please don't fall for this myth that a man needs sex, otherwise you're hurting him and he's gonna suffer and it's so stressful. No, that's not how it works. You're not going to be causing him any harm if you say no. I hate this idea that somehow like a man's need for sex is more important than a woman's need to decide what happens to her body. Apparently a man is going to be far more hurt by you saying, not tonight, love, than him actually raping you. It's a disgusting narrative that is just wrong in all senses of the word. And you know what? Sometimes a man might really, really, really want to have sex, and he might be really, really, really in the mood. And if he doesn't get it, he might be really, really, really frustrated. But you know what? In those cases, he can go and take care of himself for 10 minutes. It's not your responsibility. Ranting a bit here. Sorry. This stuff gets me annoyed. Rule 4 is that a man wants an enthusiastic sexual partner. I mean, don't we all? Sometimes you're going to feel that what your husband demands of you is degrading or humiliating. That should never, ever, ever be the case. You should never feel that way with a partner. Your obligation is to submit to him. So always have a smile on your face and an eager to please attitude when your husband demands your sexual service, no matter what it is. For God's sake, that's disgusting. Every single bit of wording in this rule is revolting. And I mean, they're right to some extent, right? We do all want enthusiastic sexual partners. In fact, we should only want and only have enthusiastic sexual partners. Giving enthusiastic consent is hot. Let's do that more. But if your partner isn't enthusiastic about it, or you're not enthusiastic about it, this doesn't mean you force someone or yourself to act like you are. It means that you wait to have sex until you or your partner is feeling enthusiastic about it. Never, ever, ever fake it for someone, and if you do at all feel degraded or humiliated, say no. You are well within your rights to. It's not okay for someone to force you to do something that makes you feel degraded or humiliated and just make you smile through it. That's not okay, ever. Rule 5 is every man has his own personal sexual needs and desires, and your responsibility is to meet those needs the way your husband chooses. He is going to train you to please him the way he wants, and you need to work your hardest to learn what he likes and to always be attentive to his particular needs and preferences. And again, you're not a dog, you don't need to be trained. Part of the fun of being with the same partner for a long time is that you do learn to really understand each other and your bodies and what you both like, and you get very comfortable with each other, and that can be like a wonderful, really fun thing. You create this like really safe space for you each to kind of like explore what you like and so on, and that is lovely. But it should be a journey of discovery together and learning together for the pair of you. It's not one person training another. Again, that's gross, and it's selfish, and it's controlling on the part of the person doing the training. No. Can we stop with this idea of training people, please? It's like the Pearls with their training children. Here, these guys are trying to train their wife. No, let's stop training human beings. Unless it's like work training. In that case, I guess that makes sense. You know what I mean. You know what I'm trying to say. I mean, like, I do completely agree that you do have to be attentive to your partner and their preferences and their needs, but that should always, always, always be a two-way street. Never just one person doing it for the other. Rule 6 is men are visual creatures, and you need to keep your body in shape and always look your best. Oh my god. Work out and eat right to keep slim and sexy. Pay attention to your hair and makeup even if you're just at home. Embrace body modifications if your husband thinks they will enhance your beauty. There are many, many, many gross things in rules like this, but I think the worst one is how much hypocrisy is often in them, because you just know that the kinds of men who are writing and trying to enforce rules like this are the ones who aren't following through themselves. Publishing this like on a blog and saying you all need to do this is just like work out, eat right, keep slim and sexy. It's just assuming that everyone wants the same thing out of a partner and everyone wants them to look the same, and that's gross. But also, like, this one is slightly more complicated because, let me try and put this into words in the right way. Okay, the big thing to say is while it's a fairly complicated issue, it should never just be, look this way for your husband or else. That's bad, we can establish that now. But I mean, like, on the one hand, it's your body, and you should never be told what you have to look like or what you can and can't do with it, and you should never be told otherwise. You should never be told you have to look like this, this, and this. It's always your choice, and every choice you make should be for you and your comfort and your happiness and your confidence and no one else. You look how you want to look for you, absolutely. But at the same time, there are some things I think it's okay for you to ask of your partner, or for your partner to ask of you, in terms of your body, in terms of, you know, to make your partner more comfortable. Like, I don't think it's unfair to say something like, you know, are you okay to go shower and have a bit of a clean up? Or, you know, hey, can you not wear that perfume that makes me break out in a rash? Something like that, you know what I mean? I think those things are absolutely fair to ask and communicate with your partner, and it needs to be done in like a chilled out, respectful way. But I think, yeah, those asking those kinds of things of your partner and their body, that is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But dictating what someone else's body or makeup or hair or whatever looks like isn't okay. But again, that said, and this is where it gets really, really complicated, you can't help what you're attracted to or who you're attracted to or what features you're attracted to, and your partner can't either. So then again, if your partner's doing something that you don't find attractive, or wearing something that you don't find attractive or whatever, that is a little more complicated, and it's not necessarily your fault that you don't find it attractive, but it's also not their responsibility to change for you. So it is difficult, it is complicated, it's not just straightforward. But again, it all comes back to communication and compromise, and you both working on things and never asking more of your partner than you're willing to do yourself. People will absolutely have to figure this out on like a case-by-case basis, and you need to figure out what works for you and your partner and what you're both comfortable with and everything. But communication is what's important there, and doing it respectfully and never being controlling over another person. There's a huge difference between saying, hey, would you mind maybe doing X, and saying, you need to do X or I'm leaving you. A huge difference there. You have to remember as well, if you ask someone, hey, do you mind doing this? You need to be prepared to get a no in response as well. And that's okay. You deal with it like an adult and be respectful and treat each other like human beings. It's a complicated issue. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on that one. This one actually does it absolutely connects to the next rule as well, which is, again, some of the language in this is revolting. Very, very objectifying. Rule 7 is, dress the way that your husband instructs. Men like to show off their wives. You are your husband's prize. Just going to say this now, as someone who adores clothes and owns a lot, I would never let anyone else dress me. It's just, no, gross. Wearing revealing clothes does not make you a slut. I agree, actually. Good point there. You can be a faithful Christian wife and also look like a sexy, desirable woman when your husband takes you out to dinner or out on the town or to the beach. It might take you some time to feel comfortable with some outfits, but you'll be happy when you sense your husband's pride when he shows you to the world and lets people know you belong to him. So in here we have, men like to show off their wives, dress as your husband instructs, you are your husband's prize, and you belong to him. That's absolutely disgusting. I know I keep saying that a lot, I'm sorry, but no one has any right to tell you what to wear, and especially no one has any right to force you to wear clothes that you're not completely comfortable in. And this includes whether you're being forced to dress modestly or being forced to dress in a revealing way. If you're not comfortable with it, you're okay to say no. You absolutely have every right. And you're not some little trophy to be paraded around. If that's happening, get the hell out of there. Like, absolutely. Like, yes, it's wonderful to be with someone who's proud of you and who celebrates your achievements. That's exactly what you want. When they're only using your achievements to make themselves look better, that's not okay. That crosses a line. Absolutely. Points 8 and 9 are, God's sake. The Bible is very clear that your husband is your master and that God expects you to always respect his absolute authority over you and to serve and obey him in every way. You're not his property. You're not his slave. You're not. As my husband has told me many times, I can do things the hard way or the easy way, but either way I'm going to do them. That's especially worrying. So take the easy way by submitting to him with a smile on your face. And rule 9 is, sometimes your husband will need to punish you when you fall short of his expectations. Be grateful that he takes the time to correct your behavior and thank him for helping to make you a better Christian wife. So now she's straight up admitting that he threatens her with, I can do things the hard way or the easy way, but either way, I'm going to do them. That's revolting, and that is a threat. If a person is coercing you into having sex via physical or verbal threats, it is still forced, and that is still rape, and you still need to get out of there and get to safety. It's not okay. And I know saying these things might sound like common sense to a lot of people, but clearly some people still believe this crap, and some people just need to hear it from a friendly source and make sure they feel, heard and vindicated and need to be told that it's okay to push back against this kind of thinking. That's why I'm going to keep saying it. Again, I know it's slightly different, but when I was with Johnny, I questioned every single thing in my life and every bit of behaviour, and he made me feel like I had to do certain things for him and behave in a certain way for him, and made me so confused about what was okay and what wasn't. And it took opening up to other people and asking them stuff like, hey, am I in the wrong in this situation, or hey, what should I have done here, for me to kind of like recalibrate my brain, if that makes sense, and start to trust my own judgments again and know that it was okay to say no to things, or that some of his behaviour that he told me was super normal and okay and I should just man up and deal with it. It took other people, calling it out too, for me to be like, oh no, wait, that is wrong, that is bad. So sometimes, even though it sounds like common sense to outsiders, sometimes you just need to hear those things or be told those things or whatever. Yeah, sorry. Finally, rule 10 in this blog is a sexually satisfied husband makes for a happy home and marriage. And the key to a sexually satisfied husband is a wife who thinks of his sexual pleasure and embraces her submission to him. Be your husband's sexual pet. Always cheerful and humbly grateful for being the woman that he has chosen to please him. I think be your husband's sexual pet is one of the most vile sentences I've ever read. And I just want to end this video by echoing a lot of what I think I've said so far. And that's, you're no one's pet or doll or object. You're absolutely not. You're an individual and you deserve to be treated as such. And you deserve respect. Your needs and your wants and your desires are just as important and valid as your partner's, and never, ever, ever let anyone else tell you otherwise. And on that note, I'd just like to recommend a couple of books if you are interested in learning more about kind of like sex ed and stuff, especially books that cover issues like consent and, you know, just kind of like exploring your boundaries and figuring out where they are and learning to communicate them and stuff like that. And two books that I think are really like light, digestible reads, are really accessible for everyone and really, really inclusive are, as I've already mentioned, Sex Ed, A Guide for Adults by Ruby Rare, and I also thoroughly recommend Flo Perry's How to Have Feminist Sex, which again is another really like, it's all kind of like comic-y and like, you know, lots of pictures and speech bubbles and cute things like that, and you can get through it really, really quickly. You don't need to invest a lot of time in it. You can just kind of flick through and read and get the knowledge you need, and again, it's a great little resource for absolutely everyone, I think. And whether you're like a teenager or a young adult, or you're starting to get a bit older like I am, or you've been having sex for a really long time and you still want to learn a little bit more, I really recommend these books. They're great little resources. And yeah, I think it's just stuff that I think everyone absolutely needs to read and understand and learn about. So if you'd like to read those books, I will leave links to them down in the description below. They will be affiliate links, so if you buy them or anything else by clicking through those links, I just get a few pence back, and it helps support me and my channel, and helps me keep making videos like this, so I really appreciate the support. But as always, no pressure, and again, if you want to support me in other ways, I have my print shop available on my website, so there's that. But yeah, for now, thank you so much for watching today. I appreciate you guys a hell of a lot, and let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll see you again really, really soon. Also, thanks for putting it with my face for today. I didn't really want to put makeup on, so I have mascara on and some vague lip gloss. Not really gloss, like a stuff. I don't know. I didn't really want to put makeup on. It just doesn't really feel like me. I quite like makeup, but you know, you just have those days where you're like, it's my face. Deal with it. That's me today. Yeah, I don't know why I'm telling you this. Alright, I'm gonna go.